Hello and welcome to the show. Now, if you want plentiful performance in a car that is really rather easy to drive and an awful lot of fun and, could be used as an everyday vehicle, you really can't go wrong with a good hot hatch. I do love racing with the hot hatches. My personal car of choice is the Cooper Works GP Mini. I don't like the modern Mini at all. However, this car is a fantastically large amount of fun to go racing with, and there are certainly plenty of different hot hatches out there, which got us thinking, seeing as most of them are in Forza 6, which one would come out on top of a Showdown. We would start off by going racing around the Bathurst circuit. You may be wondering why there are no Civic Type Rs in this Showdown. Unfortunately, the new one that would be competitive in this field isn't in Forza 6. It's the only one that we're really missing, and the older ones just simply wouldn't keep up with the cars that we have racing here today. As we got through turn 1 of this race, it was a little bit busy, mostly 3 wide. I was causing trouble with the Mini. The least powerful car here certainly wasn't the quickest in a straight line, but I was pulling up alongside an Astra and an Audi that were equally struggling. We basically managed to block the entirety of the first straight for all of the very fast cars further back because we were all busy overtaking each other. I got stuck on the outside of the Astra and wasn't able to hold the position. The Audi S1 was plummeting through the order. Meanwhile, the Focus RS, as you would expect, the new RS was absolutely flying. We did have a reverse grid on here, but it hadn't really mattered too much for the Ford. It was already right behind my Mini. I was having to try and fend off a Golf as well as we come through the rather narrow sections at the top of this course. Still trying my best to cling on to the position. Up ahead, the Astra was fighting with the Megane. Goes around the outside of the Megane. I get to the inside of the Renault and would get the position as the Renault just can't quite keep his car on track. Just runs across the curb, spits it into the side of the Golf. But everybody does get away with it, and somehow I had held on to my positions as we run down the hill for the first time. It was as you would imagine with this sort of cars, rather frantic race. Unfortunately, a bit of a grid bug had ditched the front-wheel drive Focus RS to the back of the field, but that was also making pretty damn good progress, and that is perhaps not too surprising. Very, very powerful front-wheel drive car, this one. One of the faster cars here in a straight line. So, yeah, when we come to these long straights at Bathurst was always likely to suit the Focus well. The Audis were really struggling. The two four-wheel drive Audis had plummeted to the back of the order. They were seriously struggling for speed at this stage in the race. The Focus, though, was not as he breezes past the Subaru Impreza, gets up alongside the Golf. I was really expecting it to just go flying off past the Golf. The Golf R, though, was clinging on as they head down towards the big braking zone for the chicane. The Volkswagen has a go up the inside, tries to get the Focus back, can't quite get it stopped in time though, runs a bit wide. That opens the door for the Impreza to get a position as well. It was certainly all rather busy. I was still trying my best to fend off much faster cars. It wasn't really ever likely to the Focus RS would go past me. There's just nothing I could do in the Mini down these straights. The Focus on the back of the 2014 Golf R and would get up alongside Mercedes. Unfortunately, a bit of lag would cause some trouble for the poor Mercedes. He would not lose any positions in that, but yeah, just lost some momentum. The Focus RS absolutely flies down these straights, only really beaten by the Merc, would easily pass the Golf. Up ahead, the Astra was having a look at the inside of a Focus ST and would get the position while the Mercedes can't get stopped. The Mercedes is a real handful to drive. It is not an easy car to drive, unlike the Focus. That is very, very easy to drive, and easy to drive incredibly quickly, although the Astra was making a fight of it as they head back up the hill. The Astra just covering the inside, and this part of the course, it is pretty difficult to get overtakes done on. It is very narrow through here, with, of course, the walls either side likely to cause problems. As the race progressed, the Mercedes would gradually work his way back up through the order. As I said, it's not the nicest of cars through the corners. It's nowhere near comparable, really, to the Focus. However, when you get it on the straight, it will blitz absolutely everything as it comes soaring past the Astra. Yeah, it was just so quick coming down these straights that the rest of us didn't really have an answer for it through these sections. But yeah, you had to really kind of try and keep it in check around the corners. I would find myself in a rather big battle going on here. A fair bit down the order. The Scirocco, the older of the Golf Rs, my Mini, the Impreza, was in this group, as was the Audi S1, was just about clinging on to the back of this little train. We're going 3 wide down towards this big braking zone. Got to try and get things right. The Mini, fantastic under brakes here. The lightest car, very good at getting slowed down. I can hold it around the outside of the Golf. The Scirocco ended up out very wide. Doesn't get a very good run off the turn. Again, we're trying to fit almost 3 cars wide at Bathurst. That is not the easiest of things to do. The Impreza has nowhere to go. Quick car, but just couldn't get out of the traffic. I was still side by side with the Golf. The Golf had better traction being 4-wheel drive, but the Mini was a lot lighter. I could carry a bit more corner speed with the Mini. It just made it so even through this opening section. Still, the Golf was determined to stick it around the outside. I made sure to give him space. The Impreza has nowhere to go. He can't do anything as we are just completely blocking the entire road. The Golf still trying to hold it on the outside. Eventually runs out of grip and would lose a couple of positions as the Audi S1 would come through as well. We were having good fun racing back in this group. The Scirocco up ahead just ran a smidge wide. At the front of the race, well, we put the BMW 1M into this group. See, it's about similar price to some of these cars. Kind of a sensible alternative, just interested to see how it would fare. It was leading the way, being caught incredibly quickly by the Focus RS. The RS actually made a mistake at one point, dropped back, would catch up right at the very end of the race, tried to dive to the inside, didn't quite get the timing right for that manoeuvre. The BMW then would cling on to victory in this race ahead of the Focus RS. One more lap and the Ford would undoubtedly have had the BMW. The Mercedes would come back to third as the BMW uses the force on the cones on the outside of turn 1. I was still locked in this huge battle for position right until the end. The Impreza trying to get past much better traction out of the corner, but didn't actually have a higher top speed than the Mini. I could really hold the Subaru all the way down this straight. The Impreza on the outside as a scary place. We go around the outside. He keeps his car there. The Mini's so good under brakes that I can brake incredibly late and keep myself by the Subaru. The Megane trying to fend off the Scirocco had made a tiny mistake in the braking zone. That would cost him almost 5 places. One small mistake and the Megane would lose all of his hard-earned positions. I was still trying to defend from the Impreza. The Scirocco too far ahead of me. The Impreza's traction, though, was too impressive out of the final corner. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. 0.005 of a second was the margin of victory for the Impreza in that one. As second of the races, we would go to the Lime Rock circuit. Going to be a little bit different, though. This one was to be an elimination race. The last place car on each lap would be eliminated. Again, with the reverse grid. This time, the older Focus RS finding himself in the right position. The new Focus, well, didn't waste any time getting up through the order immediately. Jumping up towards the top 4. The Focus ST got a little bit of trouble. It got all very busy on this opening lap with 3 wide cars. They're every which way trying to find space. The Focus RS is in the middle of all of this. My Mini is rather scared at this stage. Smallest and latest car here. If something was getting pinballed around, the chances are it was going to be my Mini. So that was a little bit on the scary side as we crest the hill. It was a frantic opening lap. It was always likely to be with these vehicles as the ST goes for a little bit of a rally cross session. Unfortunately, the Megane would have some more bad luck. Rear wheel on the grass would see the Renault taking a trip into the tyre bundle that would drop him back down the order and eliminated on the opening lap. The Focus, though, 1 lap came from the back of the grid into second place. That is how quick the Focus RS is. The Audi RS3, these were struggling. Both of the Audis, the RS3 in particular, but both of them were not having a particularly good time. They just couldn't carry the same corner speed as the vehicles around them. The Scirocco was busy looking for a way past the Audi. The Golf had gone around the outside. Now it was the Scirocco's turn. The Mercedes had had an awful start, just getting stuck in traffic. And one of the big differences between the Mercedes and the Focus RS is that the Merc couldn't get through the traffic in the same way that the Focus could. The Focus could take just so much more quarter speed. It didn't have any problem getting through the traffic. The Mercedes simply couldn't do that. The Mercedes does get to the inside at turn 1. The Mercedes' main strong suit was its straight line speed. So yeah, the A-Class was having some trouble getting through the field. The S1 had held on a little bit longer in this particular race, but was quickly coming under fire as the Astra would get down the inside into turn 1. The Mercedes was still trying to play it pretty dangerously at this stage, still trying to just about stave off elimination. Yeah, if you got stuck in traffic in this kind of race, that would be quite troublesome. With the early cars out, it was the older of the two Golfs R here that would be, I think, the third car to be eliminated. Just couldn't quite find a way back past the Scirocco, and often the cars at the back here, they got marred down in traffic, and you would just lose so much time. Fourth car to be eliminated, sorry, the Audi RS3 would go out third in all of this. Mercedes marched through the field, would continue probably having the most exciting race of a lot of the vehicles, having to do an awful lot of overtaking. But most of that overtaking was coming down this start-finish straight. It isn't a particularly long straight, certainly not compared to the straights at Bathurst that we had been racing down, but it was still more than enough for the Merc to find a way past just about everything, although when it came to the corners, did have to be a little bit wary of some of these other cars, because we could carry lots and lots of corner speed. While the leaders were buggering off in the distance, this was the fight over third place. It weren't in immediate danger as of yet, but it wouldn't be long before there would be eliminations affecting this group. The Focus RS trying to fend off the Golf does hold it around the outside of the final turn. That's a long way to keep the front-wheel drive car stuck on the outside. The Mercedes would breeze past my Mini. The Golf would get to the inside of turn 1 as they're still determined to go side by side around the lap. The Audi S1 would be limited, fed off the tail of this group. Never really stood a chance of keeping up with these cars here. Mercedes now having a look for a way past the Focus on the outside, but the Mercedes doesn't have the grip, and I spot an opportunity. Put my Mini back up the inside. Unfortunately, as we run through the next corner, the Mercedes bounce across the curb. Just gives me the tiniest of nudges. My Mini is in a world of trouble out in the grass. The Focus was in a world of trouble, also doing some rally crossing. The A-classes to the inside as we head up the hill. The Focus still having to try its very best to keep it around the outside. Now I was in the danger zone. Unfortunately, with that little rally cross incident, I'd been dumped to the back of the group and needed to get a pass done if I was to keep the Mini in the race. I threw it into the final corner in an attempt to try and get back past the Astra. I had some speed, but it was only marginally on the Vauxhall, and I couldn't do it, so unfortunately the poor Mini would go out. Just one little mistake was costly for my poor Mini, but had a lot of fun actually racing it around here in that battle. Now it was the Focus trying to cling on to its position. The Astra was actually putting him under some increased pressure. The Mercedes was struggling with the corners once more, but had so much acceleration the Golf couldn't really do too much about it. The Focus RS making sure to keep his car to the inside, making sure to defend from that Astra. The Astra was going to have to throw it at the final corner as well in a hope of finding a way past. The Focus, though, just too quick around that final corner, and the Vauxhall gets a good run, but it's just not fast enough to challenge the Focus, so the Astra would go out next. To be fair, I don't think my Mini could really quite have challenged the Focus either. I was kind of helped, drawn into the battle when the Focus and Volkswagen were fighting each other so much. The Focus did try to keep with the Golf, but in the end it was just that little bit too slow. You can see the size of the gap that the Mercedes could pull on these cars when it could run in clean air and didn't have any trouble. The Golf would go next. The Mercedes would come in third place, having lost so much time fighting through the order. Perhaps, unsurprising really that the leaders were absolutely miles out in front, and it was the Focus RS that would go on to take victory in a relatively comfortable one. You can just about see the BMW in the background in second. The Mercedes and BMW are actually setting very, very similar lap times in this one, so testament to the BMW actually for keeping that up. A rundown of the order. Unfortunately, the Impreza would cause some lag and disconnect. The Renault Megane would go out first ahead of the Focus ST, followed by the Audi RS3 that had been struggling at these more technical circuits. The older of the Golf Rs would go next. Then the Scirocco. The S1 did better around here. The S1 didn't fare too badly, helped by not having any really, really long straights. Then my Mini, all very close with this little group. The Mini followed by the Astra. The Focus RS just couldn't quite quite find our way back past the Golf. The Mercedes, a solid third place. Had it not got stuck in traffic, could probably have challenged the BMW, but just couldn't get through the pack in the same way that the BMW or the Focus RS could. The Focus setting some very impressive times. That was the on-track action done. I then took each of these vehicles for a hot lap around the Top Gear circuit to see how they would fare. And unsurprisingly, at the front, that Focus RS is one hell of a car. I won 20.9 around this circuit, almost a second faster than the Mercedes A45. And it really feels it. I drove the Mercedes first of the two cars when I did these laps, and it's just a world of difference between the two vehicles. Yes, the Mercedes is very, very quick. The brakes, though, on the Focus are so much better. The Ford can take so much more corner speed. The Focus is in just another league, really. The BMW would come in third, not that far down on the Merc. The two Golfs would follow next, followed by the Audi RS3. And the Subaru Impreza. Certainly, I think the Top Gear track does favour four-wheel drive cars a little bit, and we have seen this in the past. The four-wheel drive cars do get a little bit of a benefit, possibly or largely on the exit of Hammerhead. It really does help having that four-wheel drive. So a more impressive performance from the RS3 and the Impreza. The Scirocco would be the fastest of the front-wheel drive cars, a 23.7 ahead of the Cooper Works Mini. While the Mini lacks the power, it makes up for it with the phenomenal brakes and the very, very good handling. The Focus RS would beat out the VXR Astra, while the Focus ST would end up ahead of the Renault Megane, with the Audi S1 languishing down the bottom. With the hot laps out of the way, it was on to the drag races. Now, this was always, again, likely to favour the four-wheel drive cars as we get off the line. The Focus absolutely flies. The Mercedes actually gets bogged down quite horribly. The RS3, having struggled in the races, would fare better here as it leaves a fair bit of the competition for deads trying to catch up to the Golf R. The Golf is just that little bit too far to kind of stabilise in the end of that one. The Mercedes, well, does get a very, very poor start in this one. We've seen, though, its great straight line speed. The Focus is quick, but even that, and the Focus getting a much better start, even that is no match for this Mercedes. It is just too quick as it would reel in the Focus. Had the Mercedes got a better launch, it would be long gone down here. But either way, the Mercedes would take victory in the drag race over the Focus RS. Of the front-wheel drive cars, well, you can immediately see the split in the groups once we get off the line. The Renault Megane actually gets an amazing launch, the best launch of all the front-wheel drive cars. Then comes the power of the Focus RS. Unsurprisingly, 300 horsepower, 315 torque in this car. The most powerful of the front-wheel drive vehicles would breeze past the Audi S1 that's struggling for speed. It would catch up to the Golf R, the older of the Golf Rs. Couldn't quite get the Impreza. Wouldn't be long, though, before the Focus would pass the Subaru. The Scirocco would also fare pretty well. Again, you can just see four-wheel drive cars are off in, and the rear-wheel drive BMW, of course. Another reason why I wanted the BMW in this, as, yeah, it'd make interesting to see how the rear-wheel drive car would fare. The Scirocco wasn't slow, certainly. While the Mini would struggle here, unsurprisingly, the Mini was quite a bit down on power. It was almost 100 horsepower down on the Focus RS. The Scirocco would get the Audi S1 just as they came up towards the line. The Astra was really struggling out here. We have the sort of the full results here as they come across the line. Mercedes would take victory, relatively narrow margin of victory, although it should have been greater, over the Focus RS. Both fairly resoundingly beating the BMW, but a solid third for the 1M. The Golf R would take fourth ahead of the Audi RS3 that was coming stronger in the latter parts of this showdown. The Impreza would just about fend off the first of the front-wheel drive cars, the Focus RS, beating the Golf. It was very, very close for the Scirocco, but the Volkswagen would get the Audi S1. The Renault Megane would just run out of steam a little bit towards the end of the race. The Focus ST would fend off my Mini, but the Mini was actually catching towards the end there, and the Astra would come down in last place in this one. So, with the drag race done, it was on to the 0 to 100 to 0. So, we are not only testing the acceleration of these vehicles, but how quickly can they get slowed down. We were slightly running out of time at the game mode, so we were having the car set off in 5-second intervals as opposed to the normal 10 with this one, so a little bit quick fire as the Golf R would go first. Also ignore the locked up brakes, Forza laggy replays, always good fun. The Golf R would set the benchmark. The Subaru Impreza could not quite beat it. The older of the Golfs had some issues and was well down the order. The Focus, well, that had already stopped. I think the Focus might have stopped before the Golf had actually stopped as well. The Mercedes, though, would beat the Ford. Up next, it was the BMW. Again, a solid kind of third place, but it couldn't match the RS or the Mercedes. The Astra, well, we'd seen it struggle in the drag race. It doesn't quite have the acceleration. The Scirocco went relatively well, actually, for one of the front-wheel drive cars. The S1, well, we know the Audi was struggling with speed. That goes soaring off into the distance. The Focus ST also is not quite the quickest of the accelerating cars here. The Audi making the most of its four-wheel drive. Actually, a pretty impressive stopping distance for the Audi. The Mini, not very quick accelerating to 100, but bloody good under brakes. By far the best brakes of any of the cars here. The Focus RS, lots of power, so a decent acceleration on that one. Not bad under braking either. And the Renault Megane would finish it off on the far side. So, our results of this one, the Mercedes would take it yet again. Better launch this time out. The acceleration on that Merc is just crazy. So, yeah, perhaps unsurprising to see that beat the Focus. It is close, though. The Focus is really very good under braking. The BMW a little further down the road in third place, but a fair way faster than the rest of the field. Quite a spread out one. They're probably one of the most spread out 0 to 100s and 0s we've done. The Focus RS would beat the Audi RS3, an impressive result from the RS, considering the Audi four-wheel drive. My Mini's phenomenal brakes do bring it into contention, but the lack of power and traction off the line means it can't quite beat the Golf. That is not bad, though, for the front-wheel drive Mini to get that close to the Golf R. The Scirocco would beat the Subaru Impreza. The Renault Megane would fare relatively well out here as well, as the Focus ST would just narrowly beat that Astra VXR there. Yeah, not Tesla was coming over to have a look just how close they were. Yeah, pretty close between them two vehicles, and then we have a fair way to go down the runway to find the next car. The Audi S1 would manage to beat the Golf R. Very close between them two, or relatively close between them two down here. Yeah, it was quite a spread out field, this one. As I said, of all of the showdowns that we've done, I think this is potentially one of the longest distances we've had between all of these vehicles, because yeah, the camera was having issues. I had it centered on one of the mid-pack cars here, and I couldn't really quite move it far enough out to put everything in one image. So yeah, a relatively spread out field. On to the results, and victory would go to the Focus RS with 363 points. The Mercedes would come home in second. Its impressive drag racing performance, letting it ahead of the BMW 1M. The Golf R would come in fourth, ahead of the front-wheel drive Focus RS, winning the front-wheel drive category. Yeah, the Focus RSs did well, did very well out here. The RS3 would be saved by its drag racing and straight-line speed performance. The Scirocco R did well to beat the Subaru Impreza. My Mini would beat the Astra by 1 point. Very close. Out there, the older of the two Golfs would be down towards the bottom, ahead of the Audi S1, Renault Megane, and the Focus ST. So, on to the victor. The Ford Focus RS is undoubtedly the best of the hot hatches. There really is no question about it here. Around a circuit, it is in just a different league to the Mercedes. Yes, the Mercedes will beat it in a drag race. That is about the only time, though, that the Mercedes will even get close to the Focus RS. It is just that much better through the corners. It is an absolutely joy to drive. The Mercedes is a bit of a pain. It can go relatively quickly around a circuit, don't get me wrong, but it's just nowhere near as nice. It's nowhere near as easy to get it around a track quickly as it is to get the Focus around a circuit. The Focus is an incredibly easy car to drive really very fast, and it's the ultimate hot hatch, pretty much. That's all there is to really say about it. Yeah, it's just leagues above anything else. Even the BMW, the 1M, that's not going to get near to the Focus RS. The Mercedes does come home in second. largely saved by its impressive straight line speed. It is the fastest car here, in a straight fastest accelerating car here, but it simply can't get through the corners in the same manner. It couldn't get through the pack of cars either, and that's probably the most telling with this vehicle. It just couldn't get through the slower vehicles in the way that the Focus RS could. The Focus RS could go around the outside, up the inside, make things three wide, no problem, whereas the Mercedes had to really pick and choose its moments to try and get past, and most of that came just simply out dragging cars down any of the straights. So yeah, the Focus is undoubtedly the king of the hot hatches here. Mercedes just can't keep up. The fourth place, a very solid fourth place actually, from the Golf R. It wasn't quite capable of beating the BMW. The 1M did show very good competitiveness out here. Yeah, BMW was faster than the Golf R, but the Golf was good fun to drive actually. It was a nice car. It's not quite in the same league as the Focus RS, but certainly a very solid fourth place for this vehicle, and a nice good fun car to go racing around the circuits. Yeah, just lacks the speed really of the mighty Ford. Of the front-wheel drive cars, it would be the Focus RS again. Finally, the Ford's doing well out here. Yes, the 2009 Focus RS would be the quickest of the front-wheel drive cars. The Scirocco gave it a bit of a scare for some of the events, and certainly it was not miles ahead of the rest of these vehicles, but it is the best of the front-wheel drive cars, pretty much. Some great straight-line speed from this car, and certainly plenty of speed through the corners as well. It's kind of what I expected, really, from the front-wheel drive vehicles. It is again a mighty impressive hot hatch. My Mini, I do still very much love the Cooper Works GP Mini. It is underpowered here. It's almost 100 horsepower down on that Focus. It makes up for it on the tighter circuits with just phenomenal brakes and excellent handling. A great car to drive, but in this group, could do with a bit more horsepower, sort of 50 more horsepower, and this thing would be really scaring the pants off that Focus RS. A great fun car to go driving with, nevertheless. And finally, let's not forget the likes of the Renault Megane and the Focus ST, even the Audi S1 to an extent. Well, yes, they are the slower of this group. They are down towards the bottom of the table. They're still very good cars to drive. When I was driving the hot laps of the Audi S1, I was actually surprised just how nice the car is to drive. It was good fun to go around the Top Gear circuit. It just lacks the power, the ultimate power of some of these other vehicles. The same could be said to an extent of the Megane. The Renault did get a little bit unlucky in the races, getting stuck up in traffic, and the same to an extent with the Focus ST. It's they're still good cars. They're still very, very fast vehicles. Just in this field, they are a little bit outclassed by some of the considerably more powerful cars. But yeah, don't get me wrong. They are still, all of these cars are good vehicles to drive, and certainly rather quick. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.